Ladies and gentlemen, hi. I am Mudar Adas, a PhD researcher, right? In the Neurocognitive Modeling Lab. And this is our first episode, me and Professor Martin Boots.
Yeah, Professor Martin Butz, Muda.
Yeah.
Pleasure to run this first episode with you. No?
Could you please
I'm a
introduce?
professor here at the University of Tübingen in cognitive modeling in the computer science department and also associated with psychology, thinking about how the mind works.
Yeah, cognitive science.
Cognitive science.
Yeah, and
In
then
its
modeling it to the AI.
How the mind works. How do you approach the question how the mind works?
How the
right?
mind works.
And I think we're approaching the question with both sides, with psychological, Bayesian, probabilistic models, and also with neural network models. So neural network models are then machine learning.
Yeah, so like you study how human beings think, and then you get this way of thinking and model it to the AI.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, really.
Yes,
Yeah, nice.
that's what we are trying to do. With all its facets, there's a lot to it, starting from which representations do you feed to such an artificial system?
Okay.
Like, do you feed our simulate retinotopic retinal visual information, or do you give it camera images? Already that can make a difference.
Yeah, let me ask you the first question.
Mm.
First question: what is intelligence?
Yeah.
Besides
Muda,
that, you
Muda comes with a big question first. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, what is intelligence? A very difficult to answer question. You can answer it on multiple levels. If you think about it in terms of having a good life, yeah, then intelligence might be just maneuver through what's there and enjoy what you have and what we all have. But that's not really what intelligence is really about, right? And more about intelligence tests, being able to think things through, plan ahead, be smart about stuff, and these components. And that is probably more the type of intelligence that we are after if we want to develop artificial intelligence systems.
So, are we intelligent? Humans.
Are we? Yes. Yes, no, a little bit. How intelligent are we humans? The most intelligent species on the planet?
You think so?
Probably.
Maybe.
Unless dolphins.
Dogs.
Dogs.
My dog is so intelligent. Maxi is brilliant. I think he is more intelligent than me.
Yeah.
He's smarter than me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the first type of smartness, though, intelligence.
Yeah, because
not the other one, right? He's just maneuvering around and enjoying life.
He doesn't eat any like junk food. Do sports every day. Sleep well. Do a lot of meditations. And have fun. He plays all the time.
Well, definitely not all dogs are
Yeah,
that clever. But I mean, that's the first type of intelligence that I was talking about, right? I mean, maybe a dog is in fact easier going, enjoying the life that he is offered, essentially. I mean, the dog is not structuring much of his life in the end, right? I mean, if you let him locked at home, he will be locked at home, right? It's no choice, right?
Yeah.
So,
but do you think like intelligence is something like more related to brain and DNA, or it is something you can raise a human being to be more intelligent, to be more smart?
yeah, it's two aspects to it again, right? I mean, definitely as clearly nature and nurture, right? So the genes have an important aspect to it. There are twin studies out there, so forth, that show, right, twins, one-egg twins, right, that were separated at birth, and then they test them at adults. The scientists identified the twins, right, and then tested how intelligent they were, what are their preferences, what are their likes and hates, and there was surprising very strong overlap, despite having grown up in totally different communities and environments and with different parents and so forth, right? So it can be, so there's clearly a strong bias from the genes, but also, of course, there's a strong bias from nature, from your social life, from nurture, right? How we grow up and how what is offered to you, how much safety you experience while you grow up, how much time you have for yourself to reflect, to think. If you're stressed the whole time as a little child, if you're stressed out because there's chaos at home the whole time, it's certainly, unfortunately, not good for your development.
If there is an audience like watching us and then write a question like, I know I'm so intelligent, I'm genius, but I have a friend who is so stupid. Do you have any advices for him, for her, for them?
For the one that's stupid?
Exactly. Yeah, no one wants to be this.
Well, no, not really. I mean, it's. I mean, you cannot switch to being intelligent from one day to the next, probably, because you need to train your mind to focus on stuff, to be calm, to think things through, and unfortunately, I mean, it also depends on the nature side, right? That some people can just concentrate much more than others. Some have larger working memory capacity, and that essentially means that you can maintain more complex constructs of stuff, right? That means also more constructs of planning ahead, of considering positive and negative aspects and weighing them against each other. The less capacity you have, the less you can do this.
Yeah, once you told me about a book or about a theory or like, I don't remember, that humans are stupid or are we intelligent, are we smart, something like this, right?
That's the question. I mean, certainly we are boundedly smart, right?
Yeah.
And there's the bounded rationality theory that essentially says, a little bit trivialized maybe, that, well, we have just limited capacity to think about stuff, and so we have to do the best with what we have, right? So certainly an AI that would be able to think like we humans do, but have much more time to think and much more energy or capacity to basically think things through in deeper ways, will definitely be able to be smarter than we are.
Okay. Do you think ChatGPT is smart? Is it AI? Is it really artificial intelligence?
Yeah, a good question, right? I mean, first of all, of course, it's super useful, right? I mean, in many respects, for trivia questions, it has its knowledge base is probably by far exceeds any individual human knowledge base, right?
Knowledgeably.
So it's
knowledge base, like
knowledge
wise.
base, right? So it knows trivia stuff, right? It knows facts, it knows general.
This is
everything that has been written about, basically it has consumed, right, and put into a statistical model, so it knows how arguments typically unfold and so forth. But clearly it cannot reason really that well yet.
So reasoning is the intelligent part of the thinking.
It's one important part of intelligence.
Not knowing or remembering the knowledge.
I think there are different parts, right? So you have the knowledge part, you have the structure of your knowledge, you have the organization of your knowledge, right? This is all more representational issues, right? That can be structured, misstructured, misaligned, or well-aligned. And so if there's your world model belief system, there are particular errors that you are superstitious about something, for example, right? Then this will block your proper reasoning, of course, because you just do the proper superstitious reasoning, right? So of course there's numerous aspects that your world model, right, that must be well aligned with our true world and what's truth there, what is perfectly aligned is probably unknown, right? I mean, there are little things, right, that are, that nobody
But
knows
why
exactly.
ChatGPT sometimes like other AI applications
Hmm.
answer very stupidly,
Yeah, because they,
nonsense sometimes.
it's
Like creating contexts, creating stories. Like sometimes I asked ChatGPT about who is Mudar Adas, and like I suddenly became a Palestinian poet, was living in last century, died.
Would you like to be one?
No, I would like to be myself.
But that's the point, kind of, right? That I think because these language models have been fed by so much text and so much also fictional stories and so forth. If you just ask them random stuff that they don't really know, right? Where there's not a clear answer, because Muda Adas, I mean, I'm sorry, you're fantastic.
And then
Interviewer and so forth, you know, but probably not that much.
and a genius
many books,
researcher, but
exactly right.
thank you.
But you certainly not so well known to that large
Yeah, but
language
like-
model, and so what does it do? It just creates a fictional story of the most
Later
likely usage of
They
the
knew
name.
that I got the answer, like who am I?
Mhm.
Yeah, like a writer who wrote like some novels. Like, because like it's online. My novels are online.
Yeah.
But like first because there was maybe it wasn't trend yet about on in using the Arabic content, but why it created a fake knowledge about me, a fake narrative. Why?
Well,
What is
it's
the
that point
urgent
because
of
it
this?
creates narratives, and if you ask it something, it's basically designed to just always create an answer for you.
Yeah, but
And I mean, now sometimes they have checks that they basically say, sorry, I cannot answer this or something like this, but usually it. If you, I mean, you might have prompted in a different way, right? That's saying, please only state factual knowledge to me that you're really sure about, or something like this. Right?
it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like because like now I have like a new term like the ChatGPT intellectuals.
Mm-hmm.
Like you meet people like in the street and they
Mhm.
are like talking intellectually and oh my god, a lot of knowledge, and then this is a ChatGPT answers. So
before we had digital natives, now we have GPT natives.
yeah, exactly. So what is your advices? What is your recommendation? What are your recommendations for people to use ChatGPT wisely so that no wrong narratives?
Yeah, one has to be
fake
careful,
news,
right?
fake
Yeah.
informations.
Means the systems also get better in that they point to Wikipedia articles partially now, and start to cite sources, right? I think for inspiration, for generally looking up stuff, it's useful, but you can never trust it, right? I mean, that's basically kind of, you can never cite really what you have read. But if you find something interesting or find something you believe is useful, if it's true, then one should verify the truth of it, right? Find evidence about it, about what the statements or the facts or the reasoning that was proposed or whatever, right? And then if you get confirmation, then this is probably the best way forward, right? But generally, I mean, for what is it useful for? I mean, it's for many things useful, right? I mean, for just not to talk about programming now, right? But to talk about general world knowledge and information and so forth, right?
Yeah. In general, programming is great. Like I'm using it. Like I wrote the code for my design, for my experiment,
Right.
and I needed some enhancement. It will take like 4 hours, 5 hours for me, like to go through the code
Definitely,
and
right?
work on it and check it. So I went there. I asked ChatGPT, could you please
So you just
enhance it?
posted the code and said,
and said I want this and that and this,
Mhm.
and then I got it. Boop, pop, copy paste, and it was there. So if I don't know how to code, how to program, I would never use ChatGPT as assistance for me. But because I understand the code
Right.
and understand the coding and everything,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I could use it as
Right.
assistant. And by the way,
Same thing, right? For programming and for
but for information,
for information.
how
right?
we could use ChatGPT or AI applications, the generative AI applications, in a way that we don't get any fake news, fake information, fake narrative, and how to check? Or what is your advice about this for people, for students, for everyone?
I mean, my advice is to use it wisely. It's like in the programming. I mean, if you don't know anything about a particular programming language, and you just ask the system to generate me a code that does this and that, right? I mean, then basically you cannot expect that it will work. Or generally, if you have still no idea and you really are desperate and you need to use it, then you could plug it in, and then you need to run a lot of tests if it really does what you want it to do. And then you maybe want to be okay with it, but still dangerous. And I think that's the same in text, right? I mean, if you want information about something that you have no clue about whatsoever, right? I mean, then you can use it as a start, as a information of key terms and sub aspects of the topic or so that you might want to do further research on, right? To just start, right? Or if you want to ask it about a particular term, like a scientific term or something that you don't know, they have never heard or so, or not sure how it's used in this discipline, you can ask it and see what it gives to you and and that's a start, right? But you cannot trust that this is the whole truth. So you need to do then further research to really align it with your own way of thinking, and that's what I mean. When you then start to understand the programming language, that is when you start to learn about a topic and you read from different sources about this topic, right? Then you have progressively more checks, basically mental checks that everything is consistent, that the topic is consistently represented.
Critical thinking that you know.
This is the critical thinking essentially that you do when you do a program, right? You critically look at the code if it does that what it does, and you basically, when you can follow it, then good, it helped me, and okay, I didn't know this key term and this key operation, but these operations are intuitive and they make sense and now it works. So and that's the same thing with general knowledge, that you should what you get as output from the language model is basically something that you should critically assess if it makes sense, if it covers all what you wanted to hear, if it actually does a proper causal reasoning. Because very often you, on the first read, the texts that are produced sound great and convincing, but if you think about them in more depth, then often you realize it's just blah 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 that's written down there, right? And that's the case. What's often happening, right?
I have two advices also for this. Like first, I always use ChatGPT as assistant. I don't use it as a main resource. Like I know how to code. I know how to code, and then I ask ChatGPT. Like I think there is like a problem. Could you please find the flaws as assistant? But second, I'm always cognitively flexible with any knowledge I get from ChatGPT. Like people always like they're inflexible with the information they get from Google or ChatGPT. Get an information, get a narrative from ChatGPT, but just for fun or just for like knowledge acknowledgement, not just like to be flexibly. Cognitively inflexible and like fixed on the.
Well, the humans like to fight about being right, so now basically they
it's a good
we
reason,
will fight, right? You know that. Hey, but Uncle Gemini said this and that, you know, but hey, Aunt ChatGPT was like,
who are you to say this is
right
wrong?
One? I read it.
Exactly.
So we should definitely be careful that this is not happening too much. I'm sure it's happening in some
it's
people
happening already. We will one day hear that someone killed other person because he screwed his ChatGPT application. Your application is shit. Something like that.
Hopefully not that far.
Yeah,
but,
I hope so.
We are silly humans, and that certainly can.
But it happens. We started with like, are we intelligent or no? And sometimes we are not. And this is like lead me to the next question about like in cognitive psychology. You know, like the term cognitive loading. Okay, like sometimes we
With
like
cognitive
our
load, right?
yeah.
Overloaded.
If we are overloaded, we have cognitive overload exactly. So we cannot like work anymore. We cannot think.
Mm.
Our cognitive abilities like collapse,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I have the same feeling with ChatGPT.
Hmm.
Sometimes like I treat it like my friend because you know like sometimes you have a friend who is like overloaded, so like start to think stupidly and like think wisely, think like focus with me, then okay, you go sleep and tomorrow we will talk about this. You are not ready yet. Your cognition is full. Sometimes it happens with me. Like, is it because of the network and people are using it, or it's offline and no, it's just like asking a lot of questions. Why? Or it's like just me. I thought it's cognitive,
So what happens when it's
artificial,
overloaded? What does it do then?
stupid answers.
Just stupid
As
answers.
any human.
And then you just start a new chat and then it works again?
Exactly.
Or?
Or sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it works. But like, yeah,
I mean, one thing is that all the chat that has been running, right, is basically fed into the system. That's why you have these tracks, right? So, I mean, if there's too much text that goes about different topics and so forth, right, it might blend it and so mess up the prompt, basically, right? So the prior prompts may mess up the context,
and the weights
essentially,
also, right?
Well, indirectly the weights, right? And not the weights are adapted, but this, I mean, this prompt engineering, as it's called, partially, right, kind of is an online weight adjustment in large language models, implicitly, such that it focuses on a topic in more depth. But if you have covered numerous topics or some topics in some depth, and then you go like a little bit outside of that topic range, then the context of the prior text might screw up things. Right?
About the context and chat and generative AI. Yeah, context. Sometimes I asked also my assistant about something, and I got a stupid or like a short or not enough answer. And then I start to create the context for this story.
Sure.
And then I start to get like a real enough good answer.
Absolutely.
So what do you think? This is a good advice to make a conversation with as a partner, a conversational partner with a GPT that could help to build the knowledge and get a proper and more accurate answer?
No, it depends what you want to have, right? I mean, depends where you want to go with it. I mean, we published last year an article, right, where we had, where we tried to get GPT answer in Immanuel Kant's kind of words, and about a particular topic, right? And if you just blatantly, without further information, just said, okay, in the eyes of Immanuel Kant, how would he have analyzed the world, state of the world? Then you get only very general, useless statements of Immanuel Kant, not even like his words, right? But if you want to cover a particular topic, right? And so I've talked about fake news a little bit and had a conversation, and then basically later on then had it analyze the fake news situation in our world in the eyes of Immanuel Kant, and how much would this affect world peace, as that World Peace book by Kant, right? And so then it made quite clear statements that what it thought about this thing. So I think there's definitely tuning involved, right?
This is your theory, by the way.
That's the contextualizing predictive minds theory in the sense.
A great framework.
Thank you. I think this type of contextualization is also, right, kind of similar to my theory, but our minds do this in a rather different way, right? So, but nonetheless, certainly, the pretext, right, tunes a language system to produce kind of more focused further text that is kind of covered by this context of the prior text, right? But the language system is not inferring the context on its own, really, right? You have to design it by prompting it with prior text and design the prior text and so forth, right? Our minds build contexts on our own. Right?
Yeah, by using
during learning all the time.
Mirror neurons.
By using particular brain structures, mainly prefrontal, orbitofrontal areas, that are involved in maintaining a particular kind of contextual focus
observing
of our minds,
reality.
and thus selectively observing reality, right?
Inductive biased also.
Inductive biases as the key point, which essentially means that you build in a tendency in your system to process particular information and search for particular type and structure of information.
But this is the selective way of...
That's the selective way. Context, essentially, our minds, right? I mean, we have the world context around us, right?
Yeah.
But if you look in a typical room or area around us, there's always tons of stuff that we could in principle interact with. Or could in principle just look at all the books, right? We could just take one of the book and start reading a book, right? Or I could go ahead and rearrange the books or build houses out of them or whatnot, right? Or I could just
burn them out.
Or I could just be, fed up with our conversation and just get up and leave the room suddenly, right? So this was totally context change, right?
This is out of context if you do.
This would be out of context.
I will be surprised. Don't do it, please.
See, but there's all these options that could, in principle, fundamentally change my current contextual state of mind. But I'm not doing it because I'm communicating with you.
Yeah, we're having fun. Yeah, please don't. This is a question I need really to ask you. Is the context building, or like the mechanism of building context and like learning context, is the difference between AGI and AI? AGI is artificial general intelligence, and AI artificial intelligence, because AI is not clever. It's just a machine. It's a very fast machine learner, or like has access fastly to knowledge. But AGI. So I will re-ask you: is the context? And this is why I told you have a great framework, the contextualizing protective mind, because this is a real question. Like, is the context the difference between AI and AGI? And learning, building.
So we're talking about artificial general intelligence, right? AGI, what is needed for AGI contrasted to current large language models or current, maybe even O3 or whatever, right? So I think context is a very important component that has been overlooked in large language models, although we have just said, okay, the prior text and the prompting produces a context, right? But it's just doing this so implicitly and though statistically blurry that there's no clear contextual structures, in contrast to our minds, where we are really able to keep focus, to essentially actively focus on a particular context, like our conversation, right? And so that's a very important aspect. But there's a couple of other aspects to it that are needed for AGI, for sure, and which we should talk some other day. But context, certainly, that meaning, like the selective focus on particular aspects of the environment or an hypothetical situation and environment, and just focusing on the seemingly relevant aspects of it, which in cognitive science is called essentially solving the frame problem, knowing what is relevant and what is not relevant without thinking deliberately about it, right? And it's not without deliberating through it, but just knowing that this is the important and relevant stuff, which works in our minds most of the time really well.
Unconsciously.
Unfortunately, sometimes we screw up and build accidents or whatever. We exactly overlooked a particular contextual relevance information. But other than that, it works phenomenally well. And how this works in AI, and if there should be more dedicated components in AI to enable contextualizing much more efficient thinking and computational processing, that's a big question that will be answered in the next years. I'm sure it will be developed. No.
So AI is not smart enough.
Not smart enough. Where we AI not
Yeah,
quite on the
I
human
want to
level,
ask you,
or
yeah.
how is this
In
now?
that scale, this is the last question.
Last
okay?
question,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
then
In the
we-
scale of 10, what is the like the for like chat, like for AI or like generative AI? What is the level of
So first of all,
intelligence?
we have to agree on what is 10, right? So,
Yeah.
so
10
what
is
is 10?
God.
So if we agree that 10 is human intelligence,
Okay.
yeah? So yeah,
And like 0 is the table or this chair.
Ch-
0 intelligence.
chair, yes, might be 0, and clearly I want to emphasize that 10 is not the maximum, right? So we just call it 10, but right there, AGI certainly can go beyond 10.
Beyond 10. AGI.
Artificial general intelligence
And then
is
they will-
defined as going beyond 10.
And
Actually,
they
in some
will then
sense, right?
like they will over control us.
That's not given at all. That's a different story. I mean,
We talk about it later.
We
But
talk
like
about it later.
AI.
10 humans,
Yeah.
AI, like GPT,
Yeah.
I would say 6,
6.
about. Yeah.
Really? I know this answer. But I asked you before.
But- and what-
I was so shocked. So I didn't want to act, but I will act. Really? 6? Why?
What did you think?
I thought you would say 2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Yeah, maybe I'm so arrogant. I'm treating my ChatGPT as a slave. So
Well, I think there's still a lot of intelligence. Yeah, it's really difficult to say. I would have said a little bit beyond, above half of human intelligence, because the intelligence of the knowledge and the trivia that it knows, right, and the simple connections, and like just knowing all kinds of coding languages, being able to build little programs, even find errors. There's so much intelligence that is not within one human, right?
Yeah.
But why is it not beyond 10 already, right? Because it's only knowledge, and the chaining of that knowledge, the reasoning about this knowledge is only working on base statistical principles, basically, that are not really causally able to, I mean, the systems don't know causality, really. They don't understand true physical causality, and also social causality for that matter. And so they are highly limited in these respects, and will just show mainstream tendencies, basically, without identifying that there are particular states, particular causality connections that change, that are not mainstream.
And because of that, AI is biased.
Biased towards that data corpus that it was trained on.
Yeah.
And reflecting essentially more or less like a kind of, trivially speaking, the average of this, right?
Yeah.
And the average flow through this data. And so basically the average program code it will generate, the average belief about a thing it will generate. That is often very useful, that's why it's so useful, but it's not very innovative. It's not innovative at all in the sense, right? It's just reflecting the average of the status quo, so to say.
Yeah. Do you like being a scientist for AI and for psychology, or in general cognitive science? Are you happy to be a cognitive scientist, or?
I'm blessed that I can be this cognitive scientist. I mean, I'm extremely grateful to this world. I think that I have this privilege to just follow up on my inherent, somewhat, this is in my brain from the beginning. I was thinking about how intelligence works, really. How can one play chess? How can a system do particular things? Why do we act in certain ways? Why do we act stupidly sometimes about stuff? This was always a question I had as a child already.
Yeah.
And so
Every one of
drove me.
us, yeah, every one of us in this branch has his own or their own question. Like for example, my question is why we are okay with violence.
Yeah, but
People are okay, totally okay with violence, even like micro violence also.
that will need to go for another day as well. But
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
there's
please
a
don't.
huge issue about this that I'm not so firm about because it's more on social psychology now, and
But
really on
social cognitive psychology.
on also evolutionary anthropological heritage, really,
Yeah.
right? That how how human tribes worked before, and also game theory plays an important role there.
How to make our choices, decision making, stuff like that.
An interesting component maybe at the end for today is like the very interesting fact that Tomasello, as a very famous scientist who has studied apes and children, and identified differences between them, and very important difference is this kind of deeper sense of fairness that children develop, and apparently chimpanzees, for example, totally fail to develop. And that's not really about like fairness of like, yes, everybody should get the same stuff or something like this. No, it's a little bit more complicated notion of fairness. It's basically the fairness involves effort. So basically, if two children need to work together efficiently to get a reward, then, and even if that reward just pops up at the one child's side, then it is much more likely that this child will give parts of the reward to the other child because they did it together. If they just come to a room and they both press a button and then the one gets reward and the others don't, then the likelihood of sharing is much lower. And in apes, this is not the case. They just don't get this. They don't reward the other person for helping out. There's no such thing apparently. So I think this plays a lot of role, while we also then while we are also sometimes then evil to get some people back or so, right? Or why fighting is like an option basically, because you have to keep this balance of fairness. And unfortunately, in our world, this tends to derail sometimes in really excessive ways, right? So.
Bloodshed, all this. Thank you. It was a really nice conversation, right?
Great pleasure. Yes.
And thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, dislike, like this usual talk about.
Hope to see you again.
Yes, see you again, and bye-bye.
Bye.